All right, we are live.
Awesome. Yay. Gonna wait a couple moments because there's always the weird delay, but let's see. Yay, we're live. Awesome. Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. This is the New York City Ableton User Group. We're really happy to have all of you here. If you're watching from YouTube, let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from. And also, if you're joining us in Zoom, you can also let us know where you're tuning in from. As the name of our user group kind of implies, we are usually based in New York City in person. Of course, now we're not meeting in person because of the entire pandemic, but we used to have physical meetups before everything happened, and now we're kind of continuing into this virtual space. So welcome to everyone. I see a few people watching already on YouTube. Hey, how's it going? Today we have a really awesome lineup. I'm super excited for the two guests in addition to myself who are presenting, but I'll just do a quick intro first. My name's Claire. I also go by Daltrick, and I'm an instructor at 343 Labs. 343 Labs is based in Manhattan, and we are an electronic music school that is also, we also have a branch now in Berlin, which we're very excited about. So we teach a lot of online courses. We have one of our other instructors here today as well on the lineup, which I'm very excited for too. But because of the current situation, you can pretty much take a class with us if you're interested from anywhere you want in the world. We've had students from Germany, we've had students from Florida, from Canada, all part of the 343 Labs community. And we'll be sharing a lot about these activities that we do and classes that we hold as well with you throughout the rest of the night. But just to start off, if anyone's interested in finding out more general information about us, you can head over to 343labs.com for the United States side and 343labs.de for the German side. But tonight we have a really great lineup. We have Alex Rapp, we have Adam Partridge or Atropolis, and we also have myself, Daltrick, for my artist project too. And just to start off, let's see, do we have any folks hanging out in the chat? Yeah, let us know. If you're watching on YouTube, feel free to type in a hello in the chat. I will type in a hi as well. Hello, hi. And yes, maybe to start off, let's have Alex Rapp. Alex is a really dear friend of mine, amazing producer. So happy to have her here today. And Alex, if you want to like unmute yourself and do like a little intro at the moment.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hi. Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Rapp. I'm a artist, producer, songwriter, among other things. I am.
Ooh, I think you got muted. Sorry, Alex.
But currently based in Berlin. And yeah, that's me.
Yeah, sure. So whenever you want to, feel free to go for it. You can start sharing your screen.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Cool. So I recently released an EP titled Valencia. And today I'm going to do kind of a breakdown of the last track called Wait. And I chose this song because it's kind of the most simple and to me the most interesting. It's only done on one track, or two tracks, I guess, but mainly one with just like a ton of audio effects. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. That look good? Okay, and just cool. Okay, so I figured that I would just kind of do performance and then go in deeper and show you kind of what I did. So without further ado.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Cool. I hope it wasn't too glitchy. There was a moment I was like, abort.
No, it's all good. Don't worry. Like you powered through it. Like that's
Yeah.
that's champion, total champion right there.
Sorry?
It's that German internet.
Well, yeah. So basically, I mean, you can see everything that I did, and really, I wonder if that's me. The two like most prominent effects I'd say are the looper and this shaper box. And with the looper, really not doing anything fancy. Like I have it set to recording 4 bars and then overdubbing into infinity. And then I just switched from overdub to play, and then do a fade out by decreasing the feedback percentage. And with the shaper box, I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with this plugin. It's really fun. Sometimes I like to use it. Originally, I like to use it just to kind of play and get ideas with how to make weird sounds or kind of chop up things that I wouldn't normally, in a way I normally wouldn't. And so it's actually, this is just like a preset. I think it's in, pitch. And so I'll just kind of show you here what it sounds like alone, which I think you probably heard, but so. But there are all sorts of other like fun things. Yeah, it's a really fun tool just that I've had a lot of fun experimenting with. And so I just have 3 different ones to kind of build up the tension. So the loop length is just shorter in each of them. And then the like auto filter, and I have ping pong and echo, which is somewhat like redundant, but I think they have different sounds and I really like them. I actually didn't use the auto pan today, but sometimes I like to do that when I have the like solo vocal, when the other kind of like loop thing is being filtered out. I'll use that to get that kind of that like bad guy Billie Eilish crunchy sound. I can try and wait, let me get this down. And then how could yeah, so that's a lot of fun to play with live.
Very Billie Eilish-y.
Yeah. And then this setter is a Max for Live device, and it's kind of basically like the shaper box, where it's taking the signal and like chopping it and putting it different pitches over time, but you can just kind of play with it a lot easier, and it's fun for me. But here's what this one sounds like, I guess. Yeah, and you can just kind of draw a little thing, and what's that sound like? Yeah, and I think it's free, so. And then beat repeat, of course, and just kind of playing with the grid and the pitch decay. So really that's really all that I did. And like for the recording, I just ran through it like 3 times and chose the best one. And it was like one of the easiest mixing processes because I had nothing to, like it was just EQing, I had nothing to like balance out with other instruments. Yeah, I went through that much faster than I expected, but
no,
I think
no
that's
problem,
pretty
Alex.
much it. Yeah.
I feel like maybe one thing that I immediately thought of was do you think you could maybe walk us through your process for building a rack like this? Like what makes you choose the specific kinds of effects and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Sorry, muted.
No worries. So I guess I originally started, like, this chain is actually not, like, I'm not so super proud of it. Like, I wouldn't tell anyone, like, do it like this, because it definitely could be like cleaner or I guess more organized. But I kind of, when I started making this chain, because when I perform, I'll do like, I don't know, eight tracks or something. And in each track, I'll have something different that I'm doing to the vocals. Because over time, like I've kind of started doing less in terms of like triggering and looping instruments. Like it's more been kind of playing tracks and then doing funny things to my voice live. And so I have like this song. This is like for a specific song, the Let Me Go. And for that, I needed the ping pong, to so that I could hold on to the feedback and do this kind of looping thing. And like, I guess, I just kind of built it over time. And then because of how ridiculous and like messy it was, I just grouped them in a way that was easier for me to read. Yeah, it's not so like brilliantly thought out. It's just kind of like what needed to happen.
Totally.
Makes
And as far
sense.
as like, as far as like the plugins go, this is actually kind of related to a question that we have in the chat right now.
Okay.
Have you experienced any issues with, say, latency or monitoring, especially when you're in a live setting? I feel like both of us has performed live too as well in like the same ensemble
Yeah.
as well. One of my favorite memories of the time that we went to school. But I feel like we're always, as live performers, thinking about latency and timing, and even like a couple milliseconds makes the world of a difference at times. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about that.
Definitely. And it's definitely made me just cut back on so much that I want to do or I've done, which is the unfortunate truth. But I'll like pick different plugins that, like even just before this, when Claire and I were doing sound check, we deleted a couple of plugins that I wasn't using here. So, but I'm sorry, I'm forgetting a question. I guess with latency, I think it helps, especially with this track, because it's so ambient that it can afford to be a little latent and no one really knows.
Oh, we were joking about this just now. It's so funny how we're actually speaking about it on camera now. We also had a question about buffer size, and I know it's going to be different in like a live setting versus a Zoom presentation, because for Zoom, for example, we have that upper limit. But how do you usually manage buffer size when you're performing live?
Yeah, I'm normally, I would say, now it's at 512, but I normally wouldn't go past like 256. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a good point. I think like I feel like, I don't know if you're in the same boat, but I feel like there's kind of a sweet spot sometimes. We're kind of like testing out which one works better or not. But actually on that note, since you mentioned like the actual live performance stuff, I know that you've recently been kind of getting back into the swing of doing more like in-person stuff too. What's your live setup look like apart from the vocal stuff? Like, do you use any controllers or other pieces of hardware? Yeah.
So I have here this DS1 that my partner gave to me, which I feel very lucky to have. I really love this thing. Like, I love it. So it's not something that I would expect from a controller to like have these feelings over, but it's just really stable and like the knobs feel great. But yeah, it has lots of knobs, so I'm able to really map tons of things and play around. And I have like a Kai MPK mini that I'll take because, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I used to have so much and now I just don't want to carry anything. Like it just becomes like I have a push, and I really liked using that live, but now I've just kind of found ways to trigger things within the DS1, like moving around, so I don't have to like trigger clips or just because my back hurts, or that's
very real. It's so I kind of remember like you used to do a lot of stuff on push too. I'm wondering if you still do push. And yeah, actually, we had a great comment from Heinrich in the chat as well about needing a lighter push. Totally second that. I have push right here, and I can barely lift it up on my own. So do you still use push in your workflow?
Honestly, now I've really become like, I'll even like write in my MIDI with my keyboard and stuff. Like sometimes it's just like a matter of convenience, because I've been trying to. Also, I haven't like had a stable of working, so it's really like I've really gotten used to just like using my laptop for creating. But sometimes when I'm like, okay, I need to try something new, or like go back to using the push. Yeah.
Totally. Maybe this is also a little bit more than the scope of this particular presentation, Alex, but as far as the compositional stuff goes, I love how you performed that for us. How did you actually go about creating like the linear form of the track? Because I've heard your EP, and it's a wonderful EP, and it's so cool to see this performance and hear this and then compare it to actually what came out on the EP.
Thank you. First, this one was more of like a meditation almost. Like I think with Looper, that's also another thing. Like I used to not use Looper really at all, and just kind of loop things within separate tracks, so I have a lot more control. And now I was like, well, if I'm not gonna use push, let me try Looper. And I just usually would end up like having it go on forever and seeing what kind of textures I could create. And I just was experimenting around, and I think I had the text, like I had the lyrics, and just tried to find a way that felt natural. I guess I don't know exactly how how like it wasn't. I mean, it's not like a super verse chorus thing, so it just kind of came out, I guess.
Totally. And I like how you mentioned the verse chorus stuff. And I was wondering if maybe you could even speak a little bit more about your broader compositional process. I feel like we've also spoken about that separately outside the context of this.
Yes.
I find it so interesting, if you don't mind sharing a little bit.
Yeah, well, you're definitely a pro with the structures and everything. And I'm always like, I mean, yeah, I've
That's
tried.
very kind of you, no.
I've tried now more to have a more, I guess, an easier listening experience for people so they know like what's coming. But when I first started making music, it was more just like following what was coming out. And, it was more about like building to a climax and then releasing the tension, rather than kind of doing it in a more structured way. And so it was, most of my tracks would be kind of like this, where I start out really mellow and then build to something and kind of cut it out. But now I've found a lot of joy in having a more structure, and in my next stuff that I release, I think you'll be like, what?
I'm so excited for it now. Like I can't wait to see that. But honestly, that's kind of why I love your stuff too. I think when we first met, I remember some of the stuff that you were performing back then too, like Again and other pieces like that. And that's what I've always loved about your structure. It's in a way, it's you kind of expect it, but you also get surprised, and it's a pleasant sort of surprise. So now I can't wait to hear your next.
Thank you.
But also just to, I know this we may be digging ourselves like a deep grave with this, but Alex, I'm wondering if you could maybe speak about some of the plugins that we had to delete because of, of the situation. But yeah, what are some of those that we didn't show necessarily today, but that you also use in your other kinds of sets?
Like all sound toys, I love them so much. And I also have Antares, I don't know how you pronounce it properly, but the like harmonizer, and I didn't have that, so I just put two like little altar boy. Let me see. It's going a little slow. Okay. So I just put them, like two of them together and changed the pitch, and so that was like my harmonizer. But yeah, I play around with this guy a lot, and also been doing some auto-tune with the hard tuner, which I think it works like just as good as any auto-tune plugin. But yeah, these are definitely heavy. And then the Valhalla shimmer, which they're so beautiful, these reverbs, and they're not usually so heavy, but sometimes I guess with Zoom, they were not happy.
Sorry, Zoom.
And I forgot what else we deleted. But yeah, a lot of the times, like the plugins that I'm, at least for producing, like I use Serum a lot. And in my last performance, I actually had one track with Serum that I was able to play, and nothing was crazy. But it was my only MIDI track, so that's how it works, I guess. But yeah,
totally. So we actually had we just had a question in the YouTube chat, Alex, and I know you mentioned this a little bit briefly. Where would you be able to find Looper in the Ableton Live interface? Yeah.
Great. So Looper is a stock Ableton audio effect, and if you go into your browser here and go to audio effects in the categories and scroll down, it should be here under L. And to get it to work, really you just have to drag it onto, or however you put it on there, and yeah, when the signal comes through, do a little record, overdub, all that good stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. And if anyone's just joined in, and maybe that's why the question came up, Alex actually explained a little bit of this at the beginning of the stream, and you can watch the stream as a replay. So that's a great great thing about this.
Oh,
if
cool.
you're not in the Zoom with us at the moment, you can watch the YouTube stream after this. Yay! So there's always going to be playback. Oh, we had a question from Heinrich in the chat as well. As far as heavy, what computer are you using? Funnily enough, we just spoke about this too. Alex,
yeah, I have a 2014 Mac. Let me look at the specs. Yeah, yeah, the 13-inch. 2.8, 16 gigabytes. It should work better, but for some reason I've always had issues. I do a lot of stuff with visuals also live, and it's just so horrible.
You've really worked this through the years though, because this is the same computer that you've had since school as well, and it's been several years since then. So
yeah.
This computer has worked well for the time that it's been working.
Yeah.
Cool. Just gonna check out if we have any more last questions. We had a thank you from the chat. But yay, if that's kind of pretty much it, then yeah, we also had a good to know. Yay, welcome everyone, totally. If you've just joined in the YouTube chat, this is the amazing Alex Rapp. She just presented to us about her setup for doing some vocal looping and improvisation. But if that's it, thank you so much, Alex. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Send some claps for Alex in the chat, everyone, especially if you're watching on YouTube at the moment. Yay, thanks, Alex.
Thank you so much.
Yay, clap, clap, clap. We got some claps in the Zoom chat also. Yay.
All right. Cool. All right, I'm just gonna stop sharing.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
All right.
Yay, thank you. So once again, everyone, welcome to the Ableton User Group in New York. We have a bunch of people who just joined us on the YouTube stream. I just saw the numbers change a little. So welcome, everyone, to the meetup for September. We kind of try to do this as a week, not weekly, oh my goodness, monthly. If I said weekly, we do this as a monthly thing where we meet up online to share a lot of our different approaches to using Ableton Live or other Ableton related products. And we just had Alex Rapp present about how she uses live in the context of live performances, which I always love watching Alex do. I'm so excited until we can finally meet in person again and I get to see your next live show instead of just watching you stream from a roof. Although that was really fun too. But we have such an amazing lineup, everyone. Before I introduce the next presenter, who I'm also super excited about, just wanted to share with everyone who joined in on YouTube that the New York User Group is hosted by 343 Labs, and we are a New York-based school that does electronic music education, and we're also an Ableton-Certified training center. I think we've probably got the highest number of Ableton-Certified trainers per capita over here in New York, I think, across Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan. And up next, we have an Ableton-Certified trainer who is an amazing instructor at 343 Labs 2, the wonderful Adam Partridge, or Atropolis. So, hey, Adam, how's it going?
Much, Claire. I appreciate it. Thanks for bringing us all together and, keeping this community alive. So thanks for joining us. And if you just hopped in, thanks for coming on. I'm going to be talking a little bit about rhythmic variation using audio effects, a little bit about myself. I produce under the name of Atropolis. As Claire mentioned, she actually gave you guys everything. I'm an instructor at 343 Labs, Ableton-Certified trainer. And I like to work with a lot of different styles of music. So I'm sharing with you techniques that I do use quite often for various reasons, and whether I'm in audio or MIDI. But ultimately, the goal of what I'm about to demonstrate to you guys is creating rhythmic variation using audio effects. And this kind of combination works really well with sustained sound. So I just want to put that out there. I'm going to be kind of manipulating mostly sustained sounds, long sounds. If you have short sounds, chances are they're already got some variation to it. However, I will take short sounds and create rhythmic variations with those as well, using other types of audio effects. So that's what I'm going to be getting into. Let's hop over to my screen share. Give me 1 second. I am going to just do my Ableton Live screen. Actually, no, I lied to you. I'm going to do my whole desktop, so you guys can see my messy life. And
that looks awesome.
I don't care. Share computer sound. Yeah, it's so funny. This whole virtual world, we get to peek into everyone's little personal space and look at each other's desktops from time to time. So I'm going to start off with the classics. The classics being compression and gate. And we're going to look at side chaining. So I'm starting off the classics as there's a good chance. I mean, I don't know where everyone's at. Some of you folks might already know these. And if you don't, just know these are probably one of the more common tools that we use to create rhythmic variations, whether they're more subtle, hey, what's going on with that, or more obvious. So I have a couple sounds. Let me put, everyone's faces are on my screen. So I just got to move everybody around. You guys are on my stuff right now. It's not cool. Heinrich, you're on my auto filter. Hold up. I actually think I got to get rid of this. Give me a second. Okay. I'm not going to look at anybody's face. I'm just going to go for this. So here we go. This is the first example. And this is, sorry, let me just open this up. I have something long. Sounds like this. Hey, come on, mouse, you can work. All right, here we go. All right, maybe some mixing in terms of the balance, but let's explore some things I can do to something long. So this is something that's sustained. The first tool I want to show off is gate. Now, gate has a lot of functionalities in terms of how we use it, where it comes from. I want you guys to think of gate as a door that can open and close, and what it's allowing in or not allowing in is volume. Gate, in terms of a lot of these audio effects, come from music recording technology. When we first got into recording music and mixing, initially we used gate to like get rid of room noise or bleed phones and things like that, and we still use it like that for today. I'm not going to demonstrate that use, and I'm not going to get too much into the specifics of gate, but just a little hypothetical situation. If you have room noise on your microphone, and every time you stop singing, that room noise just below like maybe -36, so you can drop your threshold down here. So anything below that threshold will not come through. So that's the cool gate. Now, what I like to do with my gate, I like to use the sidechain feature, and I like my sidechain to something short and percussive. So this kind of relationship, creating rhythmic variation, one of the ways I like to do this is to also create relationships between what's happening in my track rhythmically. So I like to often route my percussion or drum beat to the sidechain of my gate. So now the rhythm of those drums are going to articulate this long sound. So we'll go from something like this. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Just getting. Turned off my MIDI effect. Do something like this. So basically, my entire drum kit is going to that. So the sidechain will give you an opportunity. What is sidechaining? Sidechaining is a way to route a signal to control something. Okay, just want to put that out there. Sidechaining is not limited to compression. It's not limited to gating. It's just a process that allows us to route a signal to control something. So in this case, I'm routing a signal to control my gate, or I'm routing a signal to control my compressor, things like that. So the signal, what is it controlling? It's triggering the transients, the amplitude of my drums are here. Let's take those off. So I don't hear anything until I start dropping this threshold down, and how that threshold interacts with the transients or the peaks will determine how the rhythm kicks in. I do have options right now. I often like going through the entire drum kit because it's just kind of cool. But I can say, hey, maybe I'll go to just the hi-hats. And it doesn't have to be one or the other, like things that I might do. So these are cool, creative ways to keep the flow going. Let's just pretend this is a 16-bar phrase. Think about phrasing. The average phrasing is going to be a variation every 4, 8 to 16 bars, some kind of divisible of 2, multiple of 2, divisible of 2, right? So when you're thinking about your phrasing, let's just say this is now a 16-bar phrase. Ways to create variation would be to maybe think about, okay, maybe this idea, I'm not saying this is the situation, but hypothetically, maybe this. So it's like something that you can bring in and out through automation. You can think about the device on and off. Right now, I just have this in an an audio effect rack, just so we can be organized. But essentially, you could play with the device on and off. Okay, so that's the type of stuff you can get. Now, some of you might be asking, well, if it's MIDI, why not just write that? I mean, there would be quite a lot of work to get that articulation between editing the instrument, editing my amplitude envelope, the shape, the MIDI notes. You know, it'd be a lot of work to actually create that. But let's go even further. Let's say you had audio that you know, maybe it's a loop, maybe it's your own audio. This is a loop right now. But maybe you are working with audio where maybe you don't have as much control besides cutting it up yourself, but not in the sense of MIDI where you can, like, you know, compose, write the notes in. So this is my loop. That's that cool kind of choppiness. And to conclude it with the gate, the sidechain of the gate, where you want to look at it, you want to put the gate on something long, like chords or vocals or a lead, something that is sustained. You want to put the gate on that. And then you sidechain, you open up your sidechain, and I suggest using your drums or percussion to drive the signal. And now you'll create that relationship where the drums are driving that long sound. So that's the gate sidechain. I'm a huge fan of using it. And it's very obvious. The next sidechain thing I'm going to do is sidechain compression using a kick, which has a lot of functions as well, whether we're just trying to duck the bass and the kick so they can talk to each other. In this case, this is a more subtle rhythmic variation. Same concept. I'm using sidechaining, but I'm using my compressor. And it's kind of like an inverted gate. Instead of letting the sound in, it's pushing the sound down. It's compressing it. Take it off. Put it on. Okay. If you are doing some more sparse rhythmic things like this, where it's not four on the floor and maybe the kick and the clap aren't falling on the same patterns, like house music or four on the floor stuff, it's often you have the kick, clap together, right? So often you can route the kick to the side chain of the compressor, and it's fine because the kick and the clap are going to fall on each other. But if you're doing more sparse rhythm like hip hop or trap or future bass or R&B, you might want to create two compressors, one going to the clap, one going to the kick. Basically, every time the kick and the clap come in, it pushes the sound down, and then this helps. This is stylistically often used as this help create space for the kick or the snare. And arguably it's giving rhythmic variation in the sense that it's pushing the sound down. It's no longer one full held sound. Subtle. Sidechain compression is often harder to hear. Okay. One last thing with this, and I gotta hustle. We got also the opportunity to use a ghost signal. So far I've been using a source that comes from the track, and I recommended using the rhythm from your track. But there is an opportunity to use what we call a ghost, and the reason it's called a ghost is because we're not gonna hear it. I like using Operator. It comes in really nice. Operator gives me the opportunity to be short and sweet and long. I actually like to use the fixed. So a good sidechain source, of course, depending on what you need, is usually something short and quick and snappy and not too bassy. So I'm going to use this as my ghost. I don't have my second camera set up to show you my push, but trust me, this is my hand going down to my push right over here and playing it. So I can say, hey, you know what? I want to create rhythmic variation, but I want to create rhythmic variation and I want to put it in. So you're going to see me record. I'm going to do the guitar because I'm kind of tired of that thing, but check it out. So nothing, my hand goes down. Let's ghost it out. We don't hear it, we mute it. Let's put the gate just a little bit more on top. One second. All right. Sorry for the volume. Let's move over here. So here we go. And I'm going to just show you the notes so you can see it. The operator, we're going to hold it. I don't know why I can. That's a ghost. It's a ghost because you don't hear it. I'm using that signal. This is a really cool. You can do that with sidechain compression as well. If you want different rhythmic variations that aren't necessarily in your track, and this is a really cool thing for live performance too. You can start gating, like whether it's something in your track or a musician that's on stage, or maybe Alex has got a loop going on and you got her in the looper and you throw the gate on and you can start triggering and cutting up a sample in real time, which is dope. I'm strapped for time. Let's keep it moving. Let's see what else we got. Okay. All right. I'm going to go to my next favorite tool. Let's go down here. Let's see how we're moving. All right. Okay, sorry. Things weren't set up the way. This is the original thing, just one long saw wave. The next album is just going to be that, so check it out. But anyway, no, here we go. Auto filter. This thing, I love the auto filter. I'm just going to show off the LFO aspect of it. That's just a kind of my own feel. I'm personally not the biggest fan of the action and the feels of the envelopes and the quantized movements. I'm just going to focus on the low frequency oscillator and how this low frequency oscillator can take something like this. Okay. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about auto filter. Same scenario, something long. This is a long drone saw wave. Here's my auto filter. Now, there's a couple things you got to do to rein this thing in. You got to turn the LFO on. Cut your filter. I like a low pass. It's a really cool way to put like a LFO to a filter on anything. You know, there's opportunities to do that if you got the synth, like Wavetable or whatever. But if you don't have that option, you can put this on. This is my favorite shape. I like doing sawtooth down, so you get a pluck. And just know that the thing, it's so annoying. There's so many steps. Like you got to turn this up. For the sake, if you're not too comfortable, I recommend just going to the sync mode for now, just to minimize just not getting it. And then you got to drop the filter frequency down. You got to follow those steps to get something to talk. Cool. So that's the auto filter. I love using the auto filter. I love using the auto filter to get plucks on things. There's so much cool stuff with the auto filter, the LFO. Now, Alex did something with the auto pan. She was showing this off with her vocal audio processing. to do that Billie Eilish effect. The auto pan does what it says. It's an auto pan. And when you open this thing up, it's found in the audio effects under auto pan. And you're going to open this thing up. Maybe you rewatch this thing. You're like, I can't get that thing. The auto pan is essentially 2 low frequency oscillators. And you're playing with the phase. And essentially we have 2 LFOs going to volume of the left and right signal. And as you can see, one channel is up, one channel is down. If I take the phase away, I mean, it's kind of cool. I do like you can get rhythmic variation with panning. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of opportunity there, but I'm gonna take the phase away and I'm gonna go to my sync. This is probably gonna be off. I'll talk about the invert. So this is also a really cool way to create variation. I think I got a better sound for that. Let's go over here. It's not a good auto filter sound. There's my Schwarzenegger dying on me, Max for Live thing on the Ableton website. Super glitchy, but it's awesome. Auto pan. Drop the phase. And essentially what that is it's an LFO. It's an LFO volume. It's going to volume. And you're getting modulation through the cycle of the LFO, flickering the volume up and down. And you have all these cool shapes. So the big thing is dropping the phase. Let's go to a quarter note so you can understand this inverting thing. Check it out. Let's go to a quarter note. Quarter note. Go on it. You have a way to kind of flip it. Offset to, I would be square with it, 0 to 180. You know, so you can flip it. Anyway, AutoPan, really great tool for chopping up some, to create some rhythmic variation on long parts. Whether it's the thing that you use entirely or a thing that you bring in and out. And don't forget to mess with the shape. Don't forget to mess with the rate. And if you want to throw it off the kick or on the kick, this is a way to do that. What do we got? What do I have, like 10 more minutes, I think, or 5 more minutes? Or
yeah, feel free to go over, actually. Maybe like 10 or 15 more is cool. Like, I think we're loving this. There are a couple of questions, actually, Adam. Do you feel like now's a good time, or do you want to save it to the end?
More thing. But let's do it. Let's do it. Let's hold up. Last thing, and I'll get to your questions. I'll do a quick thing. I know I'm talking at 1,000,000 miles per hour. The last thing with rhythmic variation is just using delays. So if you have really sparse rhythm, so I mentioned, I was like, it's mostly long, short relationships where you're putting the side chain or the auto filter or the auto pan on something long to chop it up. If you have something short, the best way to create rhythmic variations with something short is with delay. I have this really simple hi-hat, cowbell. Put a filter delay. Get the cool. Whether it's the filter delay, the echo, maybe take the link off and have different delays in both channels. Same goes with sends. Short send. Echo, take the link off. That's it. That's it. I'll leave it at that. Rhythmic variation using audio effects. If you got something short, delay is your best bet to create some rhythmic variations, whether it's sparse percussions or whatever it may be. Generally, you want to have a delay that gives you the potential or opportunity to have different delays for your left and right channels. Filter delay and echo delay will quickly set you up with that. The regular delay has that chance if you use the ping pong setting. Okay, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to hop out of here. And everyone's face is back. Hi, everybody.
Hi, no problem.
But yeah, what's up, everybody? Let's talk.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much, Adam. That was awesome. So we actually had a couple of questions, but maybe just to start off with, do you think you could speak a little bit more about the routing for the ghost track? So we know that you muted it. We had a question about output choices for the ghost track. If you want to just maybe go over that a bit.
So the ghost track, the biggest thing is, I'll go over a few things. The first thing is I recommend, depending on the situation, I recommend either using a rim shot or in this case, operator, depending on the control. Operator is a great thing because it gives me short and long options. Now, the routing, how it works is, again, you want to put that device on the long thing. So that long thing in this case is this synth. Please play synth.
You might have to share your screen again, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Stuff off. All right.
Well, it's the weird Zoom thing, but yeah, go for it. Yeah.
All right, here we go. Share screen. Let's just do this, right? Looking clean. Okay. Let's start fresh. For whoever asked that question, let's start from the beginning. I'm in my audio effects. I go to gate. I put the gate on the long thing. This is my long thing. Like sustained chords. I open up my sidechain and I'm going to select whatever it is I need. I mentioned drum kits are great. Now I select the audio from the starter kit. Now at this point, this is the drum rack. I do have the opportunity to route to any individual part of my drum rack, which I will do for a compressor, usually the kick or the snare. But in this case with a gate, I like to do the entire drum kit. So I actually don't leave, I don't set it, I don't change anything. I just do the entire kit. Now, this is very intimidating pre, post, and post. Every sound, you have one sound, it's gonna have three options. I'll just say this, if you forget what I'm about to say right now, the best bet is to end up with pre-effects, okay? If you forget this, because there are a lot of reasons to why you might want to think about it. But think about putting, let's say, something like this on your kick. That's an effect that's blowing up your bass. That big accented bass by my drum bus is a bad sidechaining signal because the bass is not going to snap for me. So I would say pre-effect. I don't want my signal to come after the effect. I want it to become before the effect. I don't want it to hit the drum bus and then go to my sidechain. I want this nice tight kick. So that's the whole pre-effect, post-effect situation. Pre-effect is dealing with, you don't want the signal before the effect, you want the signal after the effect, and then the post mixer is dealing with whatever you're doing on that particular channel, whether you're muting or changing the volume. I tell everybody, if you forget this, pre-effect is usually the better choice. You can argue with me, there would be an opportunity for post-effect where you would need it, but most of the time pre-effect is the better option. So I can set pre-effect. This is going to the entire drum kit. Going to the entire drum kit. I can say, hey, just go to the kick of the drum kit. Oh, I have another kick using. So I hope that answers your question. I know it's a kind of a scary place to go when you go to the sidechain, but you start with the channel, and often that channel is going to be maybe a drum rack. And if it is, the drum rack gives you an extra opportunity to then route to a specific item in that drum rack. And for the purpose of my gate, I like to be up here. I like to have the entire drum kit, not just the kick, snare, or hi-hat. All right, so stop.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Adam. So we did have one more question that is, we actually a few questions that we're talking about like compressors versus gates, and you brought up both of them, which is awesome. Thank you. How do you know when you want to use a gate versus a compressor? And maybe this is even more of a question for you as an artist, like when you're making your own music too, like how do you make those choices?
Yeah, there's a lot of answers to that question, but let's just talk about the typical uses of these tools. Compression generally in electronic music is used to make things louder and give it more life. It can go in the other direction, but that's usually what we want. Gate is more for kind of sculpting the sound. Gate has more of an impact. Well, they both have an impact. It's a they both
Sorry,
have
I know it's a hard question, but
an impact on dynamics. But just to show you right off the bat, like gate has more of a shaping quality on every single envelope. And just to show you like a real quick example, let me go ahead and share my screen again. The bad example to use, freaking jacked up. You guys are using Splice, just know the sounds come in pretty hot. They're already pretty compressed and just heavy. So in one answer, because these tools can go far, compression is going to be used to like really change the like tone in a way. And gate has more of an impact. It can definitely have a tonal impact, but gate's more of an impact on the amplitude envelope, the shape of the sound. I like to use gate on loops like this to like play with the amplitude envelope. I can take something and make it like really tight, or I can get rid of things. Maybe I don't want the hi-hat. I just gate out the hi-hat. The gate has more of an influence. I like using gate on samples or sections that I want to make tighter. I want to make the amplitude envelopes tighter and snappier. The gate can be a really great tool. Compressor can also do that as well, but compressor is definitely something that you think of when you want to like give something more volume. So yeah, that's not the best answer, but
no, that was great. Thanks, Adam. We have people saying thank you in the chat. So yeah, totally. And maybe this is, it's funny. I don't think I ever told you this anecdote, but someone mentioned before or was asking before, like, how do we find Atropolis's music? And interestingly enough, there was a meetup that we did for Ableton CTs, and someone in there, I'm not sure if they even knew you personally, but they were like, yeah, I've been listening to this person called Atropolis recently. I really like their music. And we were like, well, he's one of us. So how do people find your music, Adam?
Spotify would be great. Or
Cool.
yeah, Spotify, SoundCloud. I think most people use Spotify. Atropolismusic.com. That would be all of it. But it's SoundCloud Atropolis, Facebook Atropolis, Spotify, all of that. So that's where you can find me. Thank you.
Cool, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Adam. Everyone, please give some claps for Adam in the chat and like claps. Is this the new one? Like the
silent clap. It's like this. It's like yeah.
Oh wow, that's like amazing. I think we all have to do that now. So everyone, if you're in Zoom with us, go ahead and do it with us at the same time.
Thank you, Claire. Thank
all
you.
the claps. No, thank you, Adam.
Participating and asking questions. All right.
Really
Can't wait to see what you got.
Yeah, thank you. So thanks so much again, everyone, for tuning in. Just as a quick reminder, we are the New York Ableton User Group. We had a couple of folks just join us on YouTube as well as in the Zoom room. Been letting a couple folks in too. Thanks so much for being here. We do this every month, and it's hosted by 343 Labs, which is a school that's based in Manhattan. Usually, now we're kind of like on the online ether. But just to put this out there one more time, a couple of us that are presenting tonight are instructors at 343. I'm an instructor there. Adam's an instructor there too. We have lots of really great upcoming courses. So if you're interested in finding out more, you can head over to 343labs.com for the New York side and 343labs.de for the Berlin side. We also have a location in Berlin. And in response to one of the other questions we had just now, yes, the Berlin is a physical location. I believe it's at Riverside Studios. It looks really beautiful. Our co-founder Max is currently over there doing a couple of things. And I think Alex has actually also been there too. It's a really cool location and we have lots of great activities. So if you want to find out more, please head over to our website. But in the meantime, our last presenter for today is actually me. So this is going to be a weird sort of meta-ish moment, I guess, of the hands, yay. But yeah, so my name's Daltrick as an artist. Generally, I go by Claire whenever I'm teaching stuff, which is what I go by at 343 Labs too. But for my artist project, it's called Daltrick, which is in lowercase letters DOLLTR exclamation point CK. And I recently released an EP last month, actually, that was called Crumble. And it was a little bit of like a, Alex, that's so nice. It was a little bit of a concept EP in that it was one of those where I specifically decided to like have an intro and an outro and have some kind of storytelling that went on inside. And I started sharing it with a lot of my students as well, who were very open to it, and I appreciated that a lot. But for some reason, a lot of them were interested in not any of the main tracks, but the outro. So that's what I'm going to do a little bit of today. A lot of you might know me as kind of like Push Lady with 343 Labs because I'm always doing push related stuff. So this is going to be my first production breakdown that I've done for an Ableton User Group, which is a little bit out of body for me, but I guess here we go. I'm going to start pinning video and spotlighting. And yeah, let's start some screen sharing. So here we go. This is my live set that I used to create To Dust in a linear fashion. To Dust is the name of the outro track of my EP, and it's fairly short. You can kind of see that over here, if we take a look at the bottom of live, it's really only about 2 minutes or so long. And maybe that's the first like tip / trick, because sometimes we forget that live is great for finding out like what the actual time of things are. But if you ever have a time selection in live and you hover over it, you're going to be able to tell that the exact length of whatever you're selecting. So for example, I now know on the bottom left of live that the duration of my entire track is 2 minutes and 8 seconds long. So that's one neat tip, I guess. I like throwing out random things over there. But yeah, maybe let's just start off by playing this through, having a listen to it. And then I have a couple of points that I love to specifically break down and highlight and share with all of you. So this is To Dust, the last track of my recent EP. Yeah, that was it. Cool. So I'm going to stop this now before it starts looping again. But yeah, that was the outro track of the EP that I released. And I wanted to kind of talk about a couple of things that I was thinking about when I was composing this. And weirdly enough, I kind of when I was speaking to people about this particular track, I often referred to myself as composing it rather than producing it. And maybe that's because I did think of this almost a bit more as from like a composer sort of perspective. And just to put that a little bit into context, I was one of, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but maybe also fortunately, I don't know. I was one of those people that went to music college. So went for a lot of classes that dealt with like composition. There were a few classes there too that were specifically dealing with electroacoustic music. So one of the composers who influenced me a lot when I started thinking about sound design was Edgar Varese. And I started thinking a lot about his music and how he was using different kinds of elements like found sounds and other sorts of maybe sounds that we would less expect to find in traditional quote unquote electronic music that we listen to nowadays. And for me, that is also kind of relates to how one of my personal unofficial goals as a producer is to find sounds that maybe no other producer has. So like finding things that are a little bit unique to me. And for me, I found that I found a lot of success in using my vocals for that. So a little bit similar to this is maybe a little bit of a hybrid between Alex and Adam. I'm going to show you a couple of things that Alex touched on and also things that Adam touched on. So I guess this is a good wrap up for today's user group. Wow, I wonder who created this event. As far as certain things go, let's take a dive into a couple of sections, and maybe I'll start from the bottom up, or maybe I'll just start with an overview. All that you see here is my live set, and one of the most important things that I find is to, and this may seem trivial, but to give yourself an environment that you enjoy working in. You might have noticed that both Alex and I had purple versions of live. I like purple because it makes me happy and it kind of puts me in a good mood. It's a little similar to certain producers who have mood lighting. For me, I think it's a mood live-ing. I don't know. Bad puns. Sorry, it's a sign that I'm becoming older because it's my birthday tomorrow. That said, though, I do like to keep things color-coded. So I have the purple background in live, and then most of the stuff that I do in live to keep organized is really just a lot of color coding. So I usually do drums in orange, and it's not necessarily synesthesia, but I think of it, I always think of drums as being kind of warm. So I usually do drums in brown or orange. I usually do FX in a lighter shade of that because I sometimes associate certain elements with being percussive too, but they can also be ambient. And that's in a way why I've colored these very subtly different colors. Bass for me is usually blue. And then I think about synth stuff usually being purple. Sample-based things, I usually tend to have it as pink. And then I have any stuff that's vocals in green. So this is kind of like my usual color coding system that I do. One thing that I was thinking of back to the compositional side, though, is that since this was the outro of my entire EP, the second to last track was called Fade. So I ended up using the vocals from that instead. I didn't record any original vocals that were specific to the track, but I ended up grabbing vocals from other places and using them a little bit like motifs instead, or light motifs if you're thinking in a more classical sort of tradition. And that's why it kind of also tied in with the theme of the song, which is To Dust. The intro song of this entire EP was called From Dust, so it kind of went from dust to dust, and then the title of the EP was Crumble, so everything's kind of weirdly related in that way. But I'll just go through a couple of things about the vocals, and specifically the vocal chops. This was the main vocal chop line throughout the entire piece. So let's go ahead and open this up and take a look at what's happening. So over here, what I did is I initially had an entire vocal recording of this, and you can kind of see this over here, but on the bottom left we have Simpler, and Simpler is a simple sampler in Ableton Live to very plainly put it. But I did something that's called slicing it to a new track, and in this way I'm able to kind of use specific MIDI notes to trigger portions of my entire vocal sample. So in the end I had something that sounded like this. And yeah, those are vocals, but at the same time, they don't really sound vocally, and that's because they have been transformed in a way. I have transposed them. They're now in the key of this song versus the key of the original song that I had it in. And I've also played with something that's called the formant, and this is something that I also like playing a lot with whenever I'm doing vocoder stuff or transformative vocal stuff in a live sort of setting. If you've ever seen any of my live sets, sometimes you'll hear like vocals in the background that maybe sound as if they're children, but it's really just me. I mean, I do kind of sound like a child sometimes, but if you really up the format on my voice, it's like, yeah, you got baby Claire. So that's kind of what I'm doing over here as well. You've got a couple of chopped up syllables, and I've also purposely put them on a specific mode that's called Complex Pro. This is a warp mode in Ableton Live. And in general, when we talk about warping in Live, it's a specific kind of engine that helps us deal with a lot of time stretching and pitch manipulation. But in this case, I've set it to Pro, which is going to end up having a different color from a few of the other settings. So that's what I chose in this case. Did a lot of experimenting, truly, to figure out what worked best, and then did a couple of other things related to fading out certain chops, fading in certain chops. And maybe that's what I'll start playing for you right here. So here's what I ended up with, just the vocal samples overall. If I hadn't done a couple of fades in and fades out, it would have sounded a bit clickier, and that's because we're directly chopping up the audio. So let's bring the fades all the way down and see if we can hear a difference. You can hear how the starts and the ends of a lot of these little chops are a lot clickier. So that's why I tend to enjoy putting in fades and in and out, just to make things a little bit smoother. And they don't even have to be super drastic. They could just be like a couple of milliseconds, and that helps to control the sound a lot more. After that, I had probably one of my favorite devices in Live to play around with. That's a delay, so kind of in line with the different kinds of delays that Adam mentioned. But this is grain delay, though. I like playing with grain delay a lot, even in a more performative sense. And this is maybe because I think about it a lot in the context of using it with something like Push, which is the hardware that works with Live. But if you turn the knobs on Push and you have grain delay on something, it's one of the most wonderful live performance devices to use. Highly encourage you to try it out. I think Alex has probably had a little bit of experience of grain delay too. But yeah, it's so wonderful to perform with. And I think now that I think about this, when I was creating this particular part, I do believe I was using a little bit of grain delay stuff on it too. And after the grain delay, then we're going through some kind of hall sort of reverb. And then I've got this wacky-ish sort of EQ. I'm not going to go super in depth into the EQ, but I just kind of want to put out there that even though it looks wacky, it kind of sounds good. So one thing that I used to get really confused by at least when I was first starting out in electronic music, and I'm only saying this just because I feel like people always caution us against like crazy EQ curves. And I used to hear that in my head and be like, don't EQ anything too crazily. Then you're not doing that properly and it doesn't sound good. But in fact, when I was thinking of that, I wasn't actually trusting my ears. Like I was instead trusting, I guess, what I had heard off the grapevine, which is not always untrue, but I feel like it kind of colored a lot of my experimentation. So in this case, you can kind of see that maybe this is next level, and Daltrick, when she was producing this, was just like, I'll have this crazy hump like a camel. And that's also something that I maybe should speak a little bit about too. Whenever I'm doing my artist project, I really do keep her very separate from Claire. Like I almost even refer to her in third person a lot of the time. But that's because I really think of Daltrick as being a platform for me to explore as much as I want to. I feel like Claire is much more level-headed. Claire is the Ableton-Certified trainer. Claire is the educator, so on and so forth. But Daltrick does kind of whatever she wants, including crazy EQ curves and weird little vocal choppy things that sound like children. So that's a little bit of the vocal chop stuff. And over here in the drop 2 section that I've labeled with the locator, I've put in like a second layer of the vocal chops. That's really just having them, I believe, doubled at the octave. So it's kind of subtle, but it's a little bit of a higher tone. And because of the way that I've put the reverb on it too, you get I believe it's more over here. Yeah. So the reverb on the second layer of vocal chops is wetter than the first layer of vocal chops. So because of that, it ends up getting a pretty nice layered texture to it. And that's just something I like to do sometimes when I'm building energy from one section to another section, especially if I want it to be really subtle. I find that adding something that's higher in frequency usually contributes really well to that. So yeah, that's the vocal chop stuff. And the only other kinds of vocal manipulation that I did were having one-off phrases here and there just to tie things in. For example, I mentioned the song before. The song was called Fade. And in this case, I have a fade vocal chop. So it's just a wee fade, and it's kind of fading on and on and on, which later also fades in the outro when I have a bunch of other effects going on. I have some other things over here like this. And of course, all of these are transposed so that they fit somehow into the key of the song. So lots of experimentation, wiggling around this transposition knob to find the best part for it. But once that's done, they kind of all function together, and they almost are in conversation with each other. So if I just solo the vocal only parts, it sounds a little bit like this. Let's play from this section. So again, more of like a compositional sort of thing, but I always think of like question, answer, antecedent, consequent. Sorry for all the classical terms, but I like feeling like things are having a conversation with themselves. I feel like in music, there's conversations happening on so many levels. It's like you as the producer or the composer with the listener, but then there's also conversations within the composition itself. And maybe that kind of brings me to where a lot of the effects lie. I like to think of effects as also, in a way, kind of contributing to the composition too. And I was so happy that both Alex and Adam brought up AutoPan because I love AutoPan so much. I have something called Rise Pan here. So let's take a look at this right now. I'm pressing Shift Tab to switch between the different views in device view over here very quickly. But that's what's happening over here. So if I didn't have this AutoPan on this track, let's go ahead and maybe turn off all of these devices for now. Let's just listen to this Rise Clean. And this is just something that I grabbed from a random sample pack. So it's a pretty average sort of rise. Starts off kind of soft, slowly swells in its own way. It's tuned also. But yeah, it's like, okay, that seems all right. But when I put all of these things on together, so I got an AutoPan, I got a little bit of reverb, and I've also got some EQ to cut out those lower ends of things, I get this. And because I've synced it to the tempo, it ends up working really well as some kind of rhythmic type of riser. So not just doing the usual sweeps, but having a little bit more of a propulsion forward. And that's why I like a lot of these little devices put onto effects. I feel like it's kind of I'm trying to find a better way to describe this, but in my head, it's that image of a little elf on your shoulder kind of whispering into your ear and being like, hey, I'm here. It's like, that's the effect. It's not super in your face, but it's doing just enough so that it's contributing to the entire movement. So it doesn't have to be like super loud or anything. And in this case, it isn't. And most of the piece itself is not super in your face, but when you listen to it, right after the fade track, which is the track before this, it all somehow ties in together. So that's a little bit of that effect. I've got the pen over here. I believe this sweep, if I take a look at this over here too. Yeah, this is another example of where I've used an echo to add a little bit more movement to the sweep. And in this case, I'm also just going to close up these devices, turn all of them off. So we'll listen to the before and after. And I've also got some sidechain compression on this too. So it's really a combination of a lot of the things we've talked about earlier today. But here's the original sweep. Let's maybe even listen from halfway through. So let's also solo it. Here we go. So again, pretty average sweep, cuts off at the end, nothing super fancy about it, but even just to add a little bit more variation, here are the 4 devices in live. Start from here. And instead of just getting that regular sweep, I have a nice little tail off at the end thanks to the echo, which again is timed. I do believe it is in eighth notes. Yeah, that's great. A dotted eighth notes. And as far as the compressor stuff goes too, the reason why it sounds as if it's so in time is because I've got this compression thing going on. Similar to Adam, I do like using some kind of source that's usually really quick and very punchy. So for me, that's usually either a specific instrument in live. So I do use operator as well. In this case, I think I might have just used some kind of kick drum loop. So if I open this up, I have this labeled as key quarter note. And yeah, it was a very short kick drum that I ended up using to be the sidechain input for most of the things that I do here. And I wanted to have two separate kinds of rhythms. So I wanted something that was maybe a little bit faster. So something like, so that's going to be quarter notes. But if I had it as half notes, it would be half of the time of that. So still timed, but just giving you a different sort of feel, like a half time feel versus an actual double time feel, or however you like to categorize that. So let me even see if I can find out which things were like the half note sidechain and which were quarter notes. I think the bass might also be a quarter note. Yep, that's correct. And yeah, over here on the electric piano, I had a half note. So here we go. And interestingly enough, on the electric piano sound, there's kind of two layers of stuff going on because there's inherently tremolo in the sound as well too. And I kind of wanted this sound to be almost a little bit quote unquote nostalgic in a way. So a lot of high pass stuff, even cut out a lot of the mid range, which is actually responsible for a lot of that normal electric piano sound that you might think of. So again, I feel like, Claire 5 years ago or something might not have even done this at all, but well, I guess she did this like 2 months ago. So maybe that's progress. Maybe it's regression. Who knows? But it's definitely a lot of just throwing caution to the wind and just composing as things go. The only other things that I wanted to mention really were how cool it is to be able to use free sounds. And if anyone's heard of it before, freesound.org is one of my favorite places to look at. I feel like sometimes we think about sample packs and free sample packs a little bit obsessively, maybe just because they're named sample packs, but really all that samples are sounds. So even if I don't go to freesound.org, I usually just carry around my, my phone. And I ended up using it to record a lot of the world around me. This is something that initially I got inspired by Toki Monsta, who's one of my personal heroes for a lot of production. She's honestly the first producer I saw where I had like an it's me moment. I talk about this a lot with my students, but I feel like as musicians in life, there's kind of that moment where we look at someone and we say, hey, I can be like that person. So Toki Monsta gave me that it's me moment, and she does a lot of field recording stuff too. So kind of got inspired a little bit by that to do a lot of field recordings on my own. But if I'm not able to do that, as in coronavirus time, like I can't necessarily go out in the world and be like recording folks. But freesound.org is a really great place to go to. And the cool thing about them is that you sign up for an account and you pretty much get access to all of the free sounds you could ever want. You can also upload stuff there. So I've also uploaded stuff there too for the community. That's a really great way to contribute sounds as well. I believe strongly in the give and take. So anything that you're getting from people, give thanks for them. And if you can't thank them, then maybe just give them free stuff too. That's always a fun thing as well. I think people love free stuff. So if we take a look at this ambient track over here, we have my good friend Auto Pan again, just for a little bit of movement this time. Nothing super drastic, but this is, I believe, just some kind of ambient noise. Yeah, just a little bit of wind hanging out, going a little bit between the ears. Nothing super fancy. And I think the other ambient noise that I had at the end, because I was thinking about this piece really finishing up and coming to dusk, coming to a conclusion. I just wanted some kind of footsteps, almost as if a good friend of yours might be walking away from you. So it's like, bye, and then filtered out, kind of walking away. So there's a lot of that too. But those are kind of the main 3 points that a couple of points. I think I did do more than three, but in my head, those were the main areas that I wanted to cover. Things about, conversations that you're having, things about not being afraid to use certain things that people might tell you are not good, especially if you think they sound kind of cool. I mean, of course, there are going to be rules and general guidelines to make things sound better as opposed to less good. But when it comes to experimenting with different sounds, I think being bold is something that I like to remind myself of, and hopefully we all remind ourselves of down the road whenever we're getting a little bit antsy. And I think I'm glad that I did this, because I don't think I would have done it even if it hadn't been for the pandemic. So maybe finding a little bit of positivity in that too, as well. But yeah, that's kind of all that I wanted to share. Thanks everyone for listening and for tuning in. I'll just check out the chat for questions now. Let's see. I'll look at. Yay, thanks so much, everyone. I'm looking at the Zoom chat first. Really appreciate all the kind words and all the support. Yeah, totally, Heinrich. Like, music concrete is like, yeah, guilty pleasure. I rarely get to speak about it, so I feel so excited about it now. Yay. Also, totally, there is a Max for Live device, which is quite amazing, everyone. If you're not familiar with Max for Live, Alex did mention it briefly too, but Max for Live is I like to think of it as like an extra arm of Ableton Live Suite. So if you have Live Suite and you want to kind of give it some level up opportunities, Max for Live is really good. It's essentially like a device. So for example, this EQ that I have over here, if you're not familiar with Max for Live, imagine having some kind of EQ that your friend built, or maybe another producer built, that you are then kind of using and putting into live. And somebody in the community created this Max for Live device that automatically hooks you up to freesound.org. So as long as you have an account, you can get free sounds immediately without having to actually go to that website and download those sounds. So yeah, let's head over to the, oh, sorry, I saw a couple more questions. Maya had a great question. Yeah, totally. Recording sounds on iPhone is like one of those things where I feel it's super underrated. Some people also have field recorders, which is really great too. But for me though, I'm always, thinking about people on a budget. I myself, I'm also always on a budget. I may have joked about this before, but maybe in conversation with Thomas or something, but both of us like hardware a lot. It's like, it's total lost cause. Like the hardware game is like, ooh. So yeah, always trying to find different kinds of ways of being creative with the resources that you already have. And I also like what Maya just mentioned about RX7. So Isotope RX7 is a really great tool for cleaning up sounds. And RX8 just got released. We're not sponsored by Isotope, but if anyone from Isotope is watching, we would love that. Maybe we can even do a giveaway if anyone from Isotope is watching. I love your products. But yeah, big shout out to Isotope. Ooh, Absinthe Etherizer. That's also a really great one. Thanks so much, Heinrich, for sharing that too. It's a really wonderful grain delay as well. Yeah, lots of great suggestions. Popping over to the YouTube chat right now. Thanks so much, Scott. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Isaiah, as well. Yay, puns. I'm glad not everyone hates my puns. Some people do. Sometimes I do as well. So it's nice to hear that people think it's not super bad. Damon asks, can you EA beat the grain delay? Yeah, sure, totally. So let's head over to the grain delay. I think that was on my vocal chops. It's actually not super crazy, but it is adding an additional dimension to things. So I'm just going to close up these devices over here by double clicking on their names. I'm going to also turn them off at the moment, and I will solo the original vocal chop track. So let's take a look at what's happening over here. Here's the clean version. Ooh, I'm also going to turn off the sends over here, the returns, excuse me. Great. So let's add in grain delay. So it's actually super subtle, but if you have headphones on, it might be a little bit harder to hear if you're listening through computer speakers, but you can hear those textures. And that's actually all that I wanted. I didn't want anything like super, super crazy, because you can get very, very crazy things with grain delay. I learned it the hard way once in the middle of a live performance, and I just was randomly turning knobs, and I had to turn the device off and just start from scratch. But yeah, so after I've got that, then adding a little bit of reverb for that distant feel, and then adding some EQ, of course, and compression. And of course, the sends and returns with just more reverb and delay. Yeah, so we got that. But that's a great question. Happy to do that. Dale Bab, questions about setting the bar of a loop so that I can keep creating. Dale, if you're tuning in, welcome. I don't think we've actually seen you before, so welcome to the community. If you could elaborate on that a little bit more, because I'm not sure if you meant that as like a general question of how to loop or how to keep creating. I feel like those are very two separate things. And as for how to keep creating, you can always keep creating. It's oftentimes it's a matter of motivation and thinking about putting in the time and the effort. So if you could elaborate on that, if you're still in the YouTube chat, that would be awesome. Isaiah, if I have Suite, how do I tap into this feature? Where do I find those pre-made Max for Live instruments? Yeah, you can head over to maxforlive.com. That's a really great resource. There's both paid for Max for Live devices. So if you want to support creators with some donations, that's always a really great way to do that. There's also lots of free stuff too. But I often am of the, maybe this is even a little bit idealistic of me, but I often think about how important it is to support creators, maybe because I'm a creator. I'm a very avid creator myself too, but I try to donate whenever I can just to make sure that you're saying thank you to the person who created the device. Because if you open up a Max for Live device, it truly is amazing. There's so many things going on under the hood. I can't even think of, for example, the amount of time and effort that went into the freesound.org Max for Live device that Heinrich brought up just now. Like, imagine who actually had to put in the time to create that. So yeah, you can go to maxforlive.com and find both free and paid for Max for Live devices. And some of them are actually by donation too. So you can choose how much you want to give as well. Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure if we're hearing back from Dale. Dale, if you're still there, let us know. But Dana, I just noticed a comment in the Zoom chat that the old school rules were mostly formulated to create more realistic recordings that would sound like a traditional live performance. Yeah. So in electronic music, those rules don't really apply since breaking them can create a lot of imaginary sounds. I love that. I feel like we may have to borrow that as a quote and use that in future Ableton User Group meetups. But that's wonderful. I like that. I like how you mentioned, the idea of something that's like traditional in a way. I feel like, and this is something I've discussed a lot with my students too. In the contemporary world, we're so used to thinking of traditions as being old or being from the past. But in a way, by doing this now, I guess maybe we're even creating our own traditions too. Like thinking about different ways of creating the new normal. Well, the new normal is such a strange term. I've so used to saying it during COVID. But yeah, and also Zoom recorders are a great low budget portable device. Absolutely. I do think that if you can afford to invest in one, it's totally great for being able to just like walk around, record things on the fly. You got your, I think it's a memory card inside, and you can just pop it into your laptop, get all of those things off. So yeah, lots of really great things that you can do with that. And yay for donating to Max for Live, people. Developers put a lot of work into that. So great that we appreciate their effort. Yes, Dale, thank you. How to preset your bars. You're trying to do an 8-bar loop. So there's a couple of ways to do this. This really wasn't related to my presentation in live, but that's okay. So let's head over here into live itself. Let's say I just wanted to work on the drop. I would then, the easiest way to do this, there are a couple of ways. One way is if you have an existing loop. So for example, if you've made this loop already in arrangement view and you want to make this 8-bar section loop, you can readjust the end point as well as the start point of your loop section. So you can kind of drag in the start of the loop bracket and the end. And right now this will keep looping. So if I play this back, let's go ahead and play this back. Here's the drop. That just happens. It starts looping around. That is only working though because my loop is already on. If I don't have my loop on, that's going to be at the top bar, the top transport control bar. Goodness, my words. Transport control bar of live. It's going to be on the top over there, and I'm toggling it on and off now. So it has to be lit up in yellow to make sure that it's on. Otherwise, things will just keep playing past. And then it goes on after that. The second way to do it is with a keyboard shortcut. So let's say I wanted to, I didn't want to loop this section over here. I can select that time in live. So I can select in any track as long as I make sure I have that specific time in focus. And then I can press Command L if I'm on a Mac or Control L if I'm on a PC. So that way you're going to be able to immediately loop that section of live so that you can work on this. But if we're talking about looping, in arrangement view, you've got this function, but in session view, that's a totally different thing. And whoo-hoo, now you see some of my session view tracks because I was working with this when experimenting with ideas too. But if you did want to just loop in session view, probably the easiest way to do that would be to, if you wanted to say like set up an 8-bar loop and create ideas as a loop in this view, you probably just double click in any empty clip slot to instantiate a new MIDI clip, and then you can go ahead and change the length of this particular clip in the lower left-hand corner of live. So you can make this 8 bars like you mentioned specifically. You could even do something like 5 bars if you want it to be maybe a little bit different with the regular divisions that you're working with, which are different from the things that Adam mentioned just now, like the 2, 4, 8. So if you wanted to set up a 5-bar loop, you could totally do that. If you wanted to set up an 8-bar loop, you could also totally do that. But right now, I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to undo everything by pressing Command L or Control L. And I'm going to undo, I think, what I just did here as well. Cool. So I hope that answers your question. And yeah, no problem, everyone. Totally. Yes. Sound design. Oh, I love that as well. Sound design is definitely a part of the compositional process in electronic music. Absolutely. Ooh, Dana just shared something too. Another great granular processing plugin is Grainspace from Audiority. Yes, I've heard of that too. I need to get my hands on that. It's very flexible and has a wonderful resonator section. Ooh, I think I do need that. I joke with friends about how even though they know me as like the vocoder person, all I really like are resonant bandpass filters, which for anyone who knows vocal synthesis stuff, that's a bit of an inside joke. But yeah, very flexible, has resonator section, which can add pitched components to non-pitched material. And ooh, thank you for sharing that as well. So everyone in the Zoom, if you're in Zoom, you'll be able to check out Dana's remix. That's really great. Thanks so much for sharing that with us, Dana. Really appreciate it. And as for the YouTube chat, it looks like we don't have any more questions. But that said, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to the New York City Ableton User Group. I'm going to check a couple of these windows over here, unpin myself, cancel the spotlight. And let's see everyone in our gallery view with all of us together. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you are on YouTube and you've stayed with us until the end, we really appreciate you staying with us. I think we also had a couple of people join us here and there throughout the evening. So really, thank you for joining us. It's always great to be able to be with you in this virtual community, even though we're far away, technically, but we're still here in spirit. And I think that's one of the most important things that we try to keep doing. If you would like to join us for next month, we will also be here again, well, not here, but we will be here at 343 Labs YouTube channel. Big shout out also to Thomas from 343 Labs, who's been helping us with like the backstage stuff of the stream. And actually, I wanted to give Thomas a few moments. Thomas, do you think you could share a little bit about the programming that we have at 343 Labs? Sorry to put you on the spot, but
Sure, no, of course. Yeah, first of all, thank you to everybody, especially, the presenters tonight and Claire for putting on such a great event. I just want to talk a moment about, what we got going on with 343 Labs outside of, the user group here. So we have some really exciting news. We're bringing back 343 TV, which is our daily live stream series, which Claire is a host of, one of the great shows that's on there. So that's going to be starting on Monday, which will be here before you know it. So look out for that. Claire is actually going to be on for the first day, I believe. So that will be really exciting. We've got some cool giveaways for you guys and a lot of new exciting shows. And then outside of that, we also have, production classes, which Claire teaches, and Adam, one of the other instructors that was here tonight, also teaches. So we've got everything, Ableton Live is kind of our main focus at the school. So we have, Ableton beginner courses, intermediate, and those are going to be offered, both online and in person. In Manhattan, we're doing very limited classes with social distancing measures in effect. But if you're, interested in that, you can get all the details just at our website, 343labs.com. I'm also going to put my email in the chat in case anybody has questions or, anything related to the school. I'm happy to help out with. But I think that's the most of it. Look out, we got a bunch of, cool stuff coming up. Like I mentioned, the 343 TV. We also have a few other one-off masterclasses. Last night we had one on synthesis with John Selway, and we have Abe doing mixing next week. So look out for those as well. But like I said, 343labs.com is where you can get all the info on this stuff. And yes, in-person classes are happening in Berlin. I see Henrich is asking. We've got a bunch of stuff starting in September for online, New York City and Berlin. So now is the time to sign up. And like I said, any questions, just feel free to reach out to me at thomas@343labs.com, which is also in the chat here on Zoom. And I added to the YouTube chat as well.
Cool.
I think
Thomas,
that's it.
sorry, we actually had a quick question. So I think this question just came up when you were mentioning the free events. How do people sign up for those?
Great question. So the best place to sign up for the events is going to be 343labs.com/events. And that's going to have everything that's coming up. And then in terms of the 343 TV, I would just refer to, our social media channels. And there's also links to that on the general website, 343labs.com. But definitely check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We're pretty much everywhere. And that's where we're kind of posting all the latest updates for these streams and the events.
Cool. Thanks so much, Thomas, for sharing all of that. And thanks, everyone, for all of your great questions. So feel free to get in touch with us with at the website, and especially if you want to be in the Command L for the next event. Sorry, that's so bad today. In the loop for the next events that we have. Like Thomas mentioned, Instagram is a really great way to keep up with us, especially for our 343 TV series that we do a lot of. We're starting season 2 next week on Monday, and like Thomas mentioned, I run one of the shows. My show's the Monday show, where we talk about a lot of Ableton Live related tips and tricks, because it's called Tips and Tricks. Teatro, who's our creative director at 343 Labs, got really creative with the name, so tips and tricks with exclamation points. But yeah, really excited to be doing that, and you can catch that at 1 p.m. Eastern time on the 343 Labs YouTube channel on Monday. The programming is going to be every day at 1 p.m. Eastern time in United States. I know that we're all everywhere around the world now, but it's United States Eastern time. So that's where you can find more of me if you are interested in finding out more about presentations. But Adam had to leave early, but thank you so much, Alex, for presenting. It was so nice. Really appreciate all of the hard work by the presenters. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for everyone who joined us in the Zoom. Really appreciate y'all signing up with all of us. And thank you to everyone in the YouTube chat. We hope to see you again at the next month's meetup in October. But until then, see you all next time. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.